welcome to Repair University OE edition 2019.
Yep.
We made a whole year and we're back for season 2.
And here we come with Toyota.
I like to say season 2.
Season 2.
It makes me feel
Season 2, we got re-signed?
special. Oh, was there a re-signing process?
I guess so. I guess so. It was press release or no?
No. She never signed the first contract.
I never signed
okay.
the first one. Yeah, exactly. All right, so here's what we're doing different this year. So last year, if you watched all the shows, we took you through the OEM websites and then some information that's available in the non-OE world, some of the free stuff available through RTS or maybe OE One Stop or some of the other places you can go to find some OEM repair information. This year what we're doing is we're taking 12 of the top selling cars in North America, having the different damage scenarios that are on those cars, and walking through the OE repair information the way we use it when we're in the shop and the way that your estimators, technicians, and everything should use it too. So we're kicking off 2019 with the Toyota Camry.
Yeah, and we're hoping that we can change the way you think.
Yeah, a little bit, because part of this is that I was just in Palm Springs a couple weeks ago talking about this with some of the OEs. We've never had a time when information has not been as available as it is now. There's really anything you want to know is there. You got to go find it, and that's the bad part because we're just not conditioned to that. But you have to know how to think to find it. So it's not just like a magic wand and you wave it and the information you need magically appears. So we're going to teach you how to think, kind of. I hate to say it, scary.
Not like Larry.
We're going to teach you how to think like Larry. So we're going to start with the Toyota Camry. So for this particular class, we've picked a 2017 Toyota Camry. Nice, decent front nose hit.
Yep.
Well, the vote was 2-1. I wanted a Bentley Continental.
Yeah, because everybody's going to get one of those in their shop.
Well,
Larry,
I thought that would be more interesting, but I got outvoted.
I couldn't afford to go to the salvage auction to buy this one to have it here physically for this show, much less your Bentley Continental. So we're going to kick off the Toyota Camry. Now, this year we're going to have 4 departments that we're going to talk about and how OE information and applying that information to the 4 departments within your shop really affects the quality of your repair. Some of you may be a little surprised to know that we've added a 4th department to your shop called calibrations. So we talked last year about how you're going to have a new technician in your shop. It's going to be your ADAS and calibration technician. Well, that's now a department as well, so we want you to start thinking about that. So we're going to talk about the estimating. What we call the body procedures will be the body tech. Refinishing, yes, painters, you too need to be thinking about OEM information that's available to you. And then we'll talk about the calibrations department. I don't want to say scanning.
No.
Pre-scan, post-scan, I think that's way overused. And if you think just having a scan tool gets it done,
it doesn't.
It doesn't, and you're leaving a lot on the table. And so we'll talk about the tools and equipment that are required beyond scanning.
And you have to have a scanner or a way to scan, but that's such a small piece of what we're actually going to talk about.
A tiny piece.
Very tiny.
And as we get more into this, it's honestly the scariest thing in the shop for me. I spend hours and I go, I don't have that tool. I don't have that tool either. Yep. So, we've talked a lot lately about, is the dealer just my best option? And I think we'll spend a lot of time this year.
I think somebody said that before.
I don't know. Some crazy guy from Brooklyn.
Oh, some guy.
Okay.
Some guy. All right.
Same lunatic talking
so,
about measuring
Mark,
cars.
what do I need to know about this 2017 Toyota Camry?
Everything.
And when do I need to know it?
Now.
I need to know it right now.
And so it's really what's available out there to know everything now.
Yep. And
in the beginning of the process, not when the car comes into the body department, not when we're trying to figure out how to get the frame rail section. But we always hear that stuff online where they're like, can somebody send me the sectioning procedure for the frame rail?
Yeah.
With a picture of the rail out of the car already, and the new rail sitting on the floor.
It's too late.
You removed it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like taking the heart out and going, anybody knows heart surgery?
Yeah,
I don't know anybody
exactly.
has heart surgery. So the process for us begins before the car hits the blueprinting stall. So as an estimator / blueprinter, before you walk out into the blueprinting stall, which means you should have a technician out there doing teardown or whatever, there's a lot of research that goes into that process that prepares you to walk out to that stall. Now, we've covered it before in some other shows. I'm going to have my interview. I'm going to review my notice of loss, my facts of loss, how many people were in the car, was the pavement wet or dry, all the things that I need to know. So for the sake of this OE class, we're going to assume that you did your customer interview.
And you watch Blueprinting 101.
And you watch Blueprinting 101. But at some point, we've seen the car drive by, whether it drove in, the customer dropped it, or it rolled past our window on a rollback. So we have a good visual image. One of your SOPs should be a vehicle check-in procedure. So the car drops. I've got initial pictures of it, even though it hasn't hit the blueprint for teardown yet. So you've got an idea of where you're going. Now, I've got 3 potential sources of information. Those resources are a third-party information site. So for us, we're looking at All Data Collision Advantage. We also have iCar, which is available out there as a third-party site. You can use estimating systems.
Yep.
Some of those have some information available. We're still on a fan. Mitchell
Yep.
keeps telling us they're going to build this great and wonderful, inclusive artificial intelligence-based thing. Looking forward to seeing it. But so far, haven't seen integrated repair procedures that really help me a whole lot.
Yeah, and really what we're dealing with here is you got to know what you're looking for. You got to know to go look for it.
Yeah.
And so part of this is we got to really look at the car. What options does it have? Where are we going to go? Before you can ever use an all data or even the RTS.
Right. So let's talk about TAS. So for Toyota, that is TAS, and that is the website that you're going to go to.
Wait, what? Facebook isn't one of the
Facebook
places
is
to go
not one of
ask?
the 3 sites for information.
Oh, I thought it was one of those free sites you can go to and ask information and find out. You know, I wonder if there's a Surgeon Doctors Operation United page out there where I'm in the operating room, I have an appendix out and the liver out. Does the liver have to go back in? Does someone have that
Which
procedure?
one do I cut first?
What was that movie with the liver with a fine Chianti or whatever? I don't know.
I mean, thank God doctors don't operate that way. Oh, you're in court right now. It's like professional lawyers united.
Well, here's the thing. You don't know because you can't get in.
Right, I can't get in.
Yeah.
There might be.
There might be.
It's like my client's up on this right now.
All right. Well, we covered Toyota and we covered TAS earlier in the year. There's a couple different ways that you can access that website. You can do it. You can do it like on a 48-hour pass. You can do it on a monthly. You can do it on a yearly.
Yep.
Depends how many cars you get. In your shop, you might want to buy yearly if you get a lot of them in there.
Yep. And so when you get into TAS, wherever you pay and choose to do it, I don't care, but now when you're in it, you're going to land on that home screen, but you're going to jump over to the TAS, and you've got 2 categories that you're going to look at there. So you see library and you see vehicle inquiry. The first thing we want to do is we want to jump over to that vehicle inquiry tab. That's where we're going to enter our VIN. We're going to hit lookup. It's going to decode that VIN, and it's going to tell me all kinds of useful information.
All the different options that you have on it, because if we don't know what options it has, we can't fix the car.
Right. And then now, one of the things that's coming to light, and we'll talk a little bit earlier when we get down in options, is that keep in mind that this isn't your golden ticket.
No.
That as things become standardized on the vehicles, whether that's ADAS or safety systems or whatever, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be listed here.
Well, remember back in the old days that every time a car would come out with like anti-lock brakes, they put an emblem on the back?
Yeah.
Well, now since every car has it, they don't have that emblem. It's the same kind of thing here.
Right. But trim packages, I order parts by trim packages and some other things. So as we get in there, just a quick review. Once you've entered your VIN, done your vehicle inquiry, you've checked for recall notices or anything that you need to know on the car, you've looked for options that maybe aren't necessarily standardized packages on the vehicle that you need to know. Like for instance, that car, we realized we have a blind spot monitor on it, although we're working on front end hit, something we still want to keep in mind.
We also have a compass.
We have a compass that we're gonna work on, and we have Doppler weather radar.
Yes, we do.
So, but if we jump back and we go to the library tab, you're gonna spend 99% of your time on TAS inside this library tab. And then if you go under where you're gonna do your search, so we've already defaulted that we're looking for a Toyota Camry 2017. You see across another set of filed tabs for you. So just real quick, you have the summary tab, pretty self-explanatory. Technical service bulletins, recalls, cribs from Mexico and Canada. You need to make sure you're paying attention to the country you're in at some point. You're going to see all kinds of things in there. As you go across, you see a few more tabs. So you have SB/TT, that's service bulletins and tech tips. You have the QTG, which is quick training guides. RM is repair manual. Electrical wiring diagrams are EWD, new car features are NCF, service campaigns SC, accessory information is the ACCY, and then CR is the collision repair manual. Now,
so most people are going to go right to the collision repair manual.
Yep, and you're going to miss a whole lot if you do.
Exactly.
Right, you got to be in the repair manual too.
Here's the breakdown. If you want to know how to take something off, put something on, or disassemble it, take it apart, you're in the RM.
Yep.
If you want to know how to weld something, join something, bond something, paint something, seal something, more along the lines of the nuances of collision repair, you're in the collision repair manual.
Yep.
So you can use the search words, keywords, go to the summary tab search and bounce between the two if you want to. But we're going to live and die inside the RM and the CR. There are a few occasions where you'll jump off to a few of the other tabs. Keep in mind, when we did the Toyota show, we showed you a lot of online training that Toyota has available that's free to anyone in the industry. You don't have to pay for TAS to get a lot of access to that.
Yep.
That is not what those quick training guides are.
Well, and then on the top, it says technical training here.
Yep.
And that tells you how to destroy their welds and how do you practice your welds, and there's a ton of stuff in there too.
Ton of great stuff.
But we're not going there in this show.
We're not going again. Again, we're not going there. Okay, so let's start with our estimators, because you are more important than ever. If you come to one of our estimating classes, Larry and I will teach you that you are the only thing that makes money for a body shop. But in a lot of ways, you are also the controlling, I want to say the gatekeeper of proper repairs. So if I line that out on the estimate very detailed, what has to be done to fix the car, makes it much easier on my technician to do it and follow it, because there's compensation for that in a lot of ways.
Yep.
So as an estimator, there are some research drivers. Now keep in mind, the estimating system, the pointing and clicking of parts, does not drive my research.
Nope.
Nor does it drive the repair process. So I have some driving questions that are gonna keep in mind. I like Larry's para-engineer analogy for an estimator. So this is where this works. Now, this is the fundamental thought difference to taking you from maybe someone that believed estimators point and click, and the estimating system kind of tells them what you're going to do, what's included, what's not included, and how that charges for it, and flipping your mind into seeing the estimating system as just one tool. If I took it away from you and deleted all of your estimating software, you should still be able to write an estimate. So, and I do that for a couple of ways. So here are my research drivers: direction of damage and travel, the substrates, what are the parts and panels made of, and what are the limitations of those substrates? I should know them. Metal's not metal, plastic's not plastic. Collision inspection requirements. Does this OE have any top high level you must do on every car?
Seatbelts, etc.
Seatbelts, airbags, road testing, whatever that is. Panel repairability. So does this OE have any statements about some things being non-repairable if damaged?
And repairable meaning that, like on a pillar or something, is that panel repairable? Then we look at the substrates, and so these kind of all tie together too.
Yeah. ADAS, I need to be thinking about ADAS, and we'll talk about how that's a little bit bigger than what ADS when you think of that in your mind. Is this car equipped with it? If it is equipped with it, what is it equipped with? Where is it located? Is it affected by the damage and potential repair? So you already, before you walk into this car, because you've seen it drive by, have a good idea of what panels you're going to be replacing, and because of that, what panels are going to have to come off because of that replacing. SRS, which also seatbelts are a part of that restraint system. So do I have SRS and seatbelt requirements? Do I need to be aware of those? One-time use parts. Does this particular OE have a pretty known list of one-time use parts? Do I need to be aware of those?
Etc.
Yeah. And then calibrations. So pre and post scanning, I get in trouble for this all the time online when a shop tells me, "What are you charging for pre and post scanning?" And I go, "Oh my God, stop." So if it's not pre and post scan,
right?
I know there's a service bulletin that comes out and says that every OE has a position on scanning these days, but scanning is the simplest, smallest part of the requirement. If you are only pre and post scanning, you're just not doing it.
Pre-scan's like taking your blood pressure at the hospital. If that's all you did, probably not going to make you better.
Yeah. So as an estimator, I'm not thinking about the pre and the post scan. I'm thinking about the calibrations, the relearns, the initializations, all the things that are going to have to be done out of the course of this repair. And do I have the ability to do that? So do I possess the targets, the equipment, the means, the facilities? We're going to get to one here later that says I got to have 26 feet of shop space behind the car.
And the other thing I saw, I saw about a week ago on an estimate, it said at the pre and post scan, and it had reset electronics, $150. As we're walking through this car, and it was a Toyota, there's no way, even to reset the lane departure, the book time's 2.1 hours.
Yeah.
Then we got the occupant weight sensor, we got the headlights, there's no way $150 is enough to cover that.
No.
Dealer'd be like a 12 or 13 hours of resets.
Right, and beyond that, I mean, if I'm using a third party, for my scanning, sure, I've got a bill for them, and that bill may be $160 or $180 or whatever that is, but I still have to have a tech that stays with the car. They got to get the equipment in and out. They got to put it up. They got to be available to move the seat and cycle the keys, and they got to put battery support on there. So even after that, a shop will tell me, "I'm marking that up 30%." Well, that's great.
And you lost the tech for the day.
Yeah, but what about all the rest of that labor? So here's this secret. So people ask me all the time. I feel like what was that Oprah Winfrey book, The Secret, that she promoted or whatever? Here's the secret. With every repair, I build a process map in my mind, because I've gotten there. I wasn't always there. I used to have to kind of scratch it out. There used to be whiteboards all over the place. I build a process map for that repair. Everything that I know I'm going to have to do, what's coming off the car, what's being replaced, what's going to go back on the car, what's not. And as I'm building that process map, that is telling me what I need to go research for. So if you think that OE repair information magically appears based on I'm going to replace a fender, then there's a whole lot of stuff that you're missing.
Well, I mean, think about it. If you're going to pull a dent on a car and you disconnect the battery, the estimating system is not going to serve you anything on that. And there's so much more that we're going to have to do.
That you're going to go in. So as you build this process map in your mind of what's going to happen, that's now telling me what I need to go research for. And the answers that I need to find. So some OEs have general position statements. Now those are more than just don't use aftermarket parts or pre-scan or post-scan. Some OEs have a lot of really detailed information in them. Toyota is one of them. So Toyota has a lot of cribs, collision repair information bulletins. They are available out there. I will say Toyota's been moving them around on me lately. So I feel like I'm playing the shell game at Vegas for $5 a try or a guess or whatever, but they have a bunch of cribs. Most shops who work on a decent amount of Toyotas have these kind of printed out and have them available. Cribs for Toyota can go from everything to how to repair a dent, the primer that you have to have before you do filler. It can go for the welding precautions. It can go for
it's paint, it's
corrosion
glass,
protection.
one-time use parts,
I
all
think
kinds of stuff.
they're more the company that understands what these cribs are actually for, or the position statements. They're really not. They're in addition to the manual, and it covers a bunch of vehicles, not just one particular procedure or position to stand on it. It's more of an addition or an amendment or addendum to the repair manual that's already pre-existing to explain something they don't need to, or like there's one at the bottom, there's one over there, no, that's the one about the materials. They changed the materials in the center section, so there's stuff that can't be repaired, but it covers all their vehicles from this year forward. That's really what a position statement's for, or a crib should be for, as an addition. I don't have to change the whole manual, I don't have to, but you know what, let's mention this.
It's a repair information bulletin.
Yeah, that's all it really is, you know.
But now as I've started to build the process map in my mind, I've seen that car either in the pictures that maybe my porter turned into me, and I know it's one of my blueprint requirements today. It's on my assignment list. As I'm building that in my mind, the process map of what I know is going to have to take place to fix this car, I now go for Toyota and I look at these cribs. I'm not by any means standing. They're not things I'm going to shove across the desk at an adjuster or whatever. But these cribs are starting to guide my conversations. The ones that are relevant.
Gives you the cheat sheet.
So if we go back and we see that picture, we're welding on this car. So the welding one that they have, the one about frame and straightening and what I can't, those are now all relevant to me. So I'm pulling them, I'm gathering them, and now, well, let's get to the car,
Let's
boys.
do it.
Let's walk out to the car. That's a lot of work for not even being at the car.
Right.
And so now I have my poor lonely technician in my teardown stall.
Well, and part of what we're going to talk about now, we still can do before we ever get to the car. But we got the car. And now what's it made out of? So what structurally is the car made out of? And if you look at this one in particular, we start talking about 980 MPA, 440, 590, 340. What the car is made out of is going to make a difference in what we can repair. So clearly, if we look at the A-pillar with the arrow there, we got some concerns potentially with that A-pillar, which is going to create two things. Number one, is it repairable? And number two, about pre-measuring, which means when we write the estimate, we're going to pull the door, pull the fender, may have to get a comparative measurement to the other side. But we're got to be thinking about this as we're going into just even writing the estimate.
Right. So I've got some 590 wrapped around some 980. So already right about 600 is the you ain't fixing it, right? So I'm really already right there. And we know we've got damage in that area. So I may have an SOP, and I do at a couple of my shops, that basically says we're taking an upper body, we're taking an underbody measurement.
Pre-measure.
So yeah, I got to pre-measure every car. But now I have a different issue. So whatever it's going to need for me to do now based on this OE information to flag or do something that tells my technician I need additional measurements. Because you're right, the fender and the door's coming off, and as soon as it is, they're coming off and tear down anyway for the blueprint. But now that technician needs to come over there and I need those side measurements. Because if I have movement in that pillar, well, there's no fixing that panel. So what may appear to be a repairable car is now total loss.
Exactly. And that's where, when most people walk up, they would look at the front bumper, go, oh, we need a bumper, we need a reinforcement, a headlight, a hood, a fender, and they get back to there. We're suggesting start in the back, see what you got, and work your way forward. Otherwise you're going to miss stuff.
Right, and in the rest of the diagram as I go through substrates, that's really my only substrate concern right now. Rest of it's mild steel. I got a little 440 on the rails, but 440 is repairable.
We'll find out, and when we actually see what it got.
So we're good to go on that one. But now I know I got to pay a little more special attention to something. So let's direction of travel.
Yep.
This car took a glancing blow. Obviously, suspension's a mess on this one.
Well, the applied impact forces are at or at a slight angle to the center line of the vehicle. So you would anticipate this type of collision event, might have laterally moved the car towards the right to a certain extent, which would make you now think, okay, let me check out one underneath the hood visually, see what's underneath there, see what, type of damage might have occurred that left out, some areas that have maybe stressing to the seams, seam sealer cracked,
Yep.
on the opposite side of the vehicle. We can see the rim was, induced inward at the top because of the way the front of the nose was kind of pushed over a little bit and kind of, smushed inward. So you're going to probably anticipate the strut towers moved.
Strut tower, strut.
You're going to anticipate the strut. You're going to anticipate, obviously, the wheel is damaged already. But then, like we said, we're going to measure that A-pillar. So we have some stuff that we're going to have to look at that vehicle and measure diagnostically, because we might take the fender off, the hood off, maybe the wheel, the bumper cover, what's ever left of it, and the headlight, and do some measurements and find out the car is really a total loss because of the structural damage and the prices of the parts, the amount of work that has to be done to the vehicle. Or we might find out, shockingly enough, maybe that wheel's all completely collapsed because the strut gave way and actually the strut tower's in the right spot. But unless you measure it, you don't know.
Right.
Yep.
And that's the importance of really, one, understanding how the vehicle was impacted. Was that vehicle on dry pavement? Was it moving or was it sitting still?
And that's back from our
customer
interview.
Right.
And what was it? Was it parked next to a curb? And we can't even see it in that photo. Is there rim damage to the opposite side from impacting the curb and maybe being induced upward onto and traversing the concrete curb?
Yep.
Right.
So do I have damage on both sides of the vehicle that I'm unaware of?
Right.
Was it moving and the vehicle got hit on one side and got induced into another vehicle on the opposite side? So these are all questions you need to know before you look at it and really go through the vehicle.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Toyota, like a lot of the OEs, gives us basically the load path diagram. So how this vehicle is designed to transfer energy at impact, where it is designed to go. So if we jump into TIS real quick, and we're in TIS, and I'm in the collision repair manual, so we can see up here that I'm in collision repair. If we go down to number 15, it says vehicle damage diagnosis. Wow, that's what I do as an estimator, right? So that might be a really great document for me to take a look at. If you look at 14 above it, that was where we were when we were looking at substrates and kind of what this vehicle is made of. But if I get into that page, Toyota has all kinds of diagrams for me that explain to me how this car is going to absorb energy and how it transfers
Where's it going to go?
And things I need to be aware of. So to keep in mind as an estimator, when you're looking at collision absorption force, so basically if the car's hit this way, this is how energy transfers. If the car's hit this way, look at that.
It's going straight across.
I love this. So I take a side hit and it's going this way.
Yep.
Right? So up here it goes that way.
Well, that's the importance of the rocker, the inner rocker and the
just a
floor
rocker
cross
panel.
members.
It's just mild steel rocker panel.
Well, the outer panel is. The inner rocker is different. And the B pillar is meant to transfer the energy up and over the roof to the opposite side. But here's the problem you have with this particular vehicle. The applied impact forces that we have on the vehicle are from the rear going forward at or near a slight angle to the center line of the vehicle. And they don't give us a depiction of that because why? Well,
it's not a normal
vehicles are built to absorb a certain amount of collision energy and transfer it someplace else, almost like tag, you're it.
Yep.
And the idea of this is to keep the occupant safe. It's almost like the quarterback. And the front rails and the rear rails of the car are your offensive linemen that are trying to protect the quarterback from getting the Lawrence Taylor sack. And in this particular case, we have an opposite thing.
It's like a Super Bowl episode.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, in this case, you can almost think of it this way. There was a handoff made.
Yeah.
And now the nose of the car's running away, but the linebacker caught up and kind of tapped it, knocked it over.
But here's what I need to know about these diagrams. And so even when I have an impact that is not exactly, a replication of what just happened to this car, Toyota is telling me where the critical points of mass are.
Yep.
So those big circles are Toyota telling me that this is a major junction in the car. So it's what they call a confirmation point. Mm-hmm. These are the don't touch zones. Don't screw up zones. Don't mess with these zones. Don't think your 30 years of experience knows better zones, because these are what's protecting the occupant, like Larry said.
Well, that's where the energy changes direction.
Right.
Hits there and goes different directions.
Now, I potentially have damage in one of these zones.
Yep.
Okay? So as we said earlier, if I took the measurements based on that being almost 600 and 980 there,
Yep.
that's a no repair. That's
Yep.
getting cut off and taken off the car.
So now the car needs an A-pillar.
Yeah, and now I've reinforced it, because as I'm looking at the way that this vehicle handles crash energy, I know this is a don't screw with this zone, Kristen. So I don't care what you think you can do. I don't care if you think it's repairable. I don't care if you think it's just a small
Well, what
tub.
if I've been doing this 30 years? Can I just pull it around and see what it does?
No.
Oh, no.
You'll be wasting your time. For example, at number 3, on this picture over here, the top circle, which would be the A-pillar area, yes, if you had applied impact forces going rearward from the front to the rear, at or near parallel to the vehicle center line, yes, that area there, and you guys have probably seen this before, the upper rail on most of the Toyotas overlaps the A-pillar, and it's got the 3 or 4 lap welds, fillet lap welds.
Back, yeah.
You'd see that kind of crush a little bit.
Yep.
In this case, the opposite. The direction of force is the opposite way.
Yep.
What you might see in this case is that overlap rail there might start
stretched.
pulling apart
Yep.
from that area. This is the difference, because it's not a depicted type of hit that we see here. This is when you get that fender off, you might even see this separated, versus beforehand, you might have not noticed it. It needs to be, measured, because the application of force is going rearward, so it would be a crush. This, we don't have a crush in this. We have a pull.
Yep.
Almost like you're trying to rip the car apart from itself,
Yep.
because it got hit from the rear going forward and kind of slapped it over. So you might see more visual stuff in this case versus a normal traditional collision event where the energy would be forced rearward. And that's the importance of getting some stuff apart and knowing, like Kristen said, that's a key point right there. That confirmation point is very important to look at, because you do have an overlapping of different materials there that's important to look at.
Yeah, and if it gets hit in the front, and that can possibly pull, as we're talking about, could pull that forward, but it also could pull this down.
It could pull that down. It could also take
why we
that
gotta measure
upper
it.
hinge and take that upper hinge now, and you're kind of twisting it forward, because I took the rail and dragged it over. If I drag it over, everything's welded. What am I going to do with this upper portion? I'm going to drag that forward the door. And we don't have a good picture of it there, but there could be a good gap between the front and rear doors now.
Yep.
And you go to open it, it's kind of springing upward, because I took that and kind of tilted it forward. I may not notice that. Oh, it's the hinges bent. Or the door's twisted on the
So
frame.
if we just look at that car and we go, the nose is just swung over.
Yep.
I think this is a car that everybody would have walked up to and put a little setup measure time on, because, that nose is swung over. But it's a much greater, bigger picture. And I know it's a greater, bigger picture because I have the OEM information to explain it.
Because we know what it's made out of, and we know the load path travel.
Exactly.
So we got to now start to look at it from that perspective.
Right. So if you're writing the estimate with these, this is 12 hours of setup measure. So by the time we get it set up, because I've got to measure the front, I got to measure the upper and the lower, and I now have to measure the side,
Yep.
and I'm putting all of these setups and measurements on my estimate.
Yeah.
And I may have a third party looking at me going, "Are you nuts?
Crazy, yeah.
Okay, great. Here, let me take you to the information. Let me
Yep.
show you how the vehicle's built and designed. These are the no zones, and I know I potentially have something in the no zone, and if that no zone's wrong, that's live die. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the D-ring.
And what we're talking about here is using the technical information to have a conversation about what we have to do to fix this car.
Right.
This is not a position statement. This is not a, because I said so. This is a scientific conversation.
Right. And my repair plan, my process map that I'm making is driving my research. It's
Yep.
telling me what I need to go find. So let's talk about ADAS and electronics. So we're going to go back to that screen where we were before.
Vehicle inquiry.
Right. Now, ADAS is a lot more than just, when we say ADAS, because it's become or ADAS, or however you want to say it, it's become a buzzword, right?
Yep.
It's the latest, hottest thing in the industry. CIC a couple of weeks ago, that was all that was on the agenda, and I was like, hey, we can't even weld. Can we talk about that?
No, of course not.
Before we move on to electronics and some other things, but it's the hottest thing on the industry. And because people are talking a lot about scanning, we say ADAS, ADAS, and scanning, and we feel really good about ourselves, and we feel really intelligent and think we've advanced the industry a lot. There's a lot more electronics in the car.
We almost get rid of ADAS.
Just say electronics.
And just say electronics.
Yep. So there's a lot there. So for instance, this is just a heads up. It's kind of a diagram. We've all seen the diagram that shows all the cameras and monitors and all this. These are all some of the other things. rain sensors, trunk safety opening sensors, seat detection occupancy sensors, the ambient light sensors, door position sensors. Those are some of my favorite, right?
I like the gesture recognition because Brooklyn is that a different
Yeah.
one for Brooklyn?
How does
Yes,
gesture
yes.
recognition work for?
You would have to do something like this.
I mean, when BMW sets gesture recognition in my car here in Arkansas, is it a different process than
Yes, it
gesture
is.
recognition in
Kind
Brooklyn?
of, from what I understand, if I'm correct, you guys usually will say "bless your heart." In New York, we start with an FM with a U, and you figure out the letters in between. We'll play like Scrabble now.
Right. There's headlamp leveling systems. We have all of these electronics that are driving us around the car. So if we go into TIS now, we're going to go back to that screen that we were earlier. So we're back into TIS. We're on the library tab up here. We're going to go over to the vehicle inquiry tab. There's our VIN. There's where we looked it up earlier. We're going to come down here and, of course, blind spot monitor. Oh, look, that also goes standard with rear cross traffic alert.
Hey,
so
cool.
it doesn't say that there until I hover over it. Convenience package. This is one of my favorites, right?
Now look at all the stuff it comes with.
Exactly. So I start
And we'll talk
reading
about
that.
this later, just to give you guys an example, but it has compass on there.
Yep.
That seems to be a big selling point with you.
Well, you wait till you see the compass reset.
The calibration process for a compass is crazy. Have you ever had one on your watch where it tells you to walk in circles for like 3 minutes?
I get a headache. I get a little nauseous.
All right. Then when we go into the radio features, we get a lot of what I would call the telematics features.
Right.
So when we're thinking about telematics and the calibrations and the requirements and all that's on there, you have that.
You mean my radio's not just reset the presets then? It's a bigger deal now.
Dude,
It's the
there's
radio.
a bunch of other stuff in there.
Yeah, no. So just keep in mind while we're here, when you do decode the VIN, Toyota has something that's very similar to OnStar. It's their version of Crash or whatever. If the vehicle does have that activated, you're going to see it here. Highly recommend you disengage that before you begin the repair process.
Yeah.
Or the car starts communicating rapidly with its owner.
Somebody stole your headlight.
Yeah, somebody stole your headlight.
Your car's
steering
being
wheel is
vandalized
missing.
right
your
now.
Your door is gone. So make sure you do. But when you get in here and you start thinking about options and what the car has, there's a lot of things in here that you may not be looking for them in traditional places. And all of those features now play a role. So that's what we've got to be thinking of when we're back into this ADAS world here and we're looking at all of this electronics and stuff that are on there. It's more than just, does it have blind spot and lane departure and all these other things. It's the Bluetooth phone, in the headliner. It's those things that kind of come back.
Well, the one
and haunt
good thing is once you get used to Toyota's TIS, all the cars are going to be the same way
Similar,
as
yeah.
far as when you go through the tabs. So if I'm working on a Sequoia, I go to that tab for vehicle inquiry, all my options, stuff like that's going to be at the bottom. And basically the same, a rail sectioning procedure is going to be in the similar, location area. So once you start getting used to it, that's why I've always stressed use the OEM. It's going to be the same across multiple models. The information might be different in there, but it's going to be the same across multiple models where you're going to find the information. That's how you get used to actually working with those particular websites.
Yep. So as I'm building this, again, I'm process mapping this repair. I'm visualizing in my mind what's coming off this car, going back on this car. What is this car equipped with that's going to be affected? Well, I'm replacing a lot of parts on the front end, and I'm going to be pulling that door. And
Well, you're also going to disconnect the battery.
Gonna
So
disconnect the
anything
battery.
electronic may require a reset.
Yep. So here's what
probably
I've got
all
going on.
windshield.
Headlamps. Headlamps are electronic. I know we had a guy on the Facebook page a couple of weeks ago basically said it's just a headlight, right? There's no adjusting headlights anymore, and it's like, headlights are part of ADAS.
Well, if the upper and lower brackets are bolted on, what moved on the inside of the lamps? Like, oh my God. Wow.
Headlamps, what's involved in those? It's more than just, I remember growing up, we would fix a car and then we'd close the door, the shop door, and you'd drive a car to a certain point, and if it was above bar 2, you were good.
Yeah, we have a piece of tape on the floor.
Yeah, you were looking to level so that one headlight was way more to aiming headlights than ever before. Radio, when I disconnect the battery, what's involved in the radio, what's in there that's telematics that may
But it's not just the preset of the radio stations.
Yep.
A whole other piece
Doppler
of
weather
radio.
radar,
Yeah.
right? The door, if I'm taking that door off, what sensors are in there? Is it what is going to have to be relearned? It's more than just do the windows roll up halfway or half down, or when I push the window or whatever. There's a lot of other things in the door. Rearview mirrors, what potential technologies in that rearview mirror?
Lane departures,
I'm definitely disconnecting the battery on this vehicle, so I know right away I'm going to be doing some welding.
And or batteries, if there's two, in some cases.
So now, if you think about it, we're fixing a door ding in the door, and we have to disconnect the mirror, and the mirror's got the camera sitting in there, and it's got the up and down feature. We're going to disconnect the battery, and all of a sudden now we're doing a potential amount of resets and calibrations.
I remember it's a Camry. It could also be, this one isn't, but it could be a hybrid.
Could be.
And we got another whole bunch of resets and disconnects we got to do, especially for precautionary reasons, not to injure yourself.
Right. I've got potential cruise control modules and sensors that are on the front of this car, parking assist sensors. We know that we have rear cross.
Distance control. You know, crash preventive or crash avoidance type system that's either in the glass or in the grill system. That's going to have to be realigned. There's a lot of stuff,
and we know,
especially in the front, that
we know this car is equipped with blind spot.
Right.
It is in the quarter, under the on the quarter, under the bumper cover on this car. But I'm going to be detrimming that car and painting back because I know I'm putting a front door on it. So as I think about that, what is going to be involved there now? With all of these systems, there's a couple different things. There's a difference between the ones I'm going to be taking off the car that are within my bumper, my core support, etc., and the ones that are just going to be detached from the computer for a while because I'm cutting the battery. So that's going to drive my research on what it takes to turn these back on. As an estimator, it's twofold. One, I need to make sure I'm getting paid properly. It's more than just plugging it in, even no matter who I'm using for my scan services, and walking away from the car. There's still a lot of work that's going to have to be done, especially when we get to headlights later when we talk about what has to be done. There's a lot of work that has to be done that needs to be accounted for, and the shop needs to be compensated, and or the technician needs to be compensated for that.
That's part of the reason why it's so important to do a pre-repair scan of the vehicle. Find out what codes you do have. Now, obviously, we're going to anticipate probably something with the suspension, ABS, and probably a flat tire. We're going to anticipate something with the headlights. That's what I really anticipate right now, right off the bat, should be there. What else might be there if the car was running, not running, or whatever the case is? I don't know. But now I know that these 7 codes were present prior to the repairs. After the repairs are done, I'm anticipating those 7 plus a bunch more because I probably had stuff unhooked, plugged the battery in, tightened it up, moved the car to a different position, unplugged it again numerous times while stuff was disconnected.
But even with or without a code, throw a code, doesn't matter. I still got a calibration process for that because it was part of the repair. So I think we get in the weeds and we go, well, what DTCs were on the car? I don't give a what DTCs were on the car. This is a repair process.
If you disconnect the battery, this car needs an alignment.
Yeah.
And the reason why is we've got a 0 point set the steering angle sensor. Now, how many people are thinking a door ding is going to cause the car to need an alignment? And there's no light on the dash.
Right.
The light on the dash comes on when the electronic stability control doesn't work.
DTCs are great, but the absence of or the presence of a DTC doesn't necessarily drive what I have to do the repair to the car. Now, as I'm thinking about what the calibration relearn, is it active, is it passive, what targets are required, do I have those targets, or do I even want to try that? It's not a matter of Toyota is great, lets me print off some things. Quite frankly, no. So, I mean, until I get my calibration targeting system in here, it would be dealer. And if it's got to go to the dealer, well, then that needs to be factored into my plan.
Yeah, cycle time too.
If I need to make an appointment with that dealer, I need to start getting on that right now as the estimator. So I'm a logistics director in a way too now as an estimator.
And a conversation to have with the customer all the way through the process too.
Right.
That's the important thing. You always got to remember to look at the repair manual portion for the replacement of an electronic component and what the resets might be. So, for example, if I'm painting the unit side of this car because of the A-pillar and the door, and I'm going to clear out the quarter, and I decide I'm going to take off that blind spot monitor and put it back on the car. Well, now, what would be the R&R process for that blind spot monitor once you disconnect the battery and/or if you remove it from the vehicle and put it back on again?
It needs a recalibration.
Right, and you look at it and you go, oh, okay, I need this. All right, so I know up front the first day it's got to go back to the dealer just for that alone, but what circumvents that, it's got to go back to the dealer anyway for that 0 point calibration with the wheel alignment just because I disconnected the battery.
Right.
So now I got a little folder I got to put together just to make sure the dealer knows what he's looking at.
What do we need to know about this car before we start this?
I want to start selling hot dogs. I don't want to do this anymore.
It's hours of research. I mean, I was explaining to a guy the other day, just to replace a bumper cover, I may spend 3 hours of research, and that would have never, I mean, there was a time in my career, no lie, there is a record. I used to write 35 estimates a day in dry van, and they were good.
Wow.
Right? But that was 1997. So those days are gone, and now I'll spend 3 hours just writing
Well, that's
one
back
estimate.
when you were writing two-line estimates.
No.
No, that's when she
These
had that
were-
little pen and you went click,
Yep.
click,
Oh.
click, and it went computerized in there.
When Mitchell had the wand, dude, I
Oh,
knew the
yeah.
codes by heart. And that was my favorite estimating system
Well,
ever.
we've seen
to
your
this day.
handwriting. It looks like you should have been a doctor.
900-500.
Yeah, and we used to handwrite. When I handwrite, I could do about 10 or 12 a day. So, but we used to, cars were much simpler now.
Yep,
Now I'll
yep.
spend 3 hours just on the research for a bumper cover. Now, TIS and Toyota have a few options for me. So again, I want to drive, there's no way anybody in any class is going to teach you everything you need to know about researching an OE process. Procedures for repair. If you learn a process, you will be golden for the rest of your life. So as we've built this repair map, this process map in our head, I've made my notes for what I know I'm going to be doing to the car. I haven't started pointing and clicking in the estimating
yet.
system yet.
No.
So I'm still doing my research and going through. Now, Toyota gives me some amazing search options. One of the better OEs out
Yeah.
there for finding what you need.
Yep.
So their search works on a really old theory of the way the internet used to work back in the early 90s and how you had to combine things. So long tail searching on Google now, where you go, what is the #1 football team in North America? That didn't exist in the 90s, right? So you had to string words together and connect them with phrases or
And
quotation
doors,
marks or whatever to keep these keywords. That's how Toyota works. It's kind of fantastic for some
It
people.
works.
So I need to figure out, as I'm thinking of all these things, how does Toyota, what are the keywords for Toyota? So when we did the Honda show, everyone remembers Honda was so amazing and gave us a keyword document and said, these are the keywords
Here's
you
your
need to know.
19.
Yeah, if you know these 19 words, you'll find everything you need. Hint to every other OE. Okay, so with Toyota, you kind of got to learn, and you'll learn as you go, and you'll find the document you need. Sometimes after 30 minutes of screaming, sometimes you look for 30 minutes, you stop, you call one of the three of us, and we go, oh yeah, it's here.
Well, and what this actually does, it's going to go through every document it can find and looks for that word.
Yep. So now, is collision what I need? So maybe I'm looking for the collision inspection requirements. Is it initialization because, is it just relearn? Is it calibrate? What are the keywords that this particular OE wants? You'll learn those as you go. Seat belts, if I just wanted to search that. If you're going to string things together, maybe you want to see blind spot monitor and initialization. So if I put and in the middle, it's only going to show me documents that has those two terminology together in the document.
Yep.
Where if I just say blind spot, I may get 9,000 documents, right? So we got one we're going to look at earlier that we searched, and in the collision repair manual, I got 60 documents, but over in the repair manual, I got 127 documents. So maybe I put some keywords together and I narrow those search parameters a little bit more.
Yeah, and it really depends. When you're doing the search, if you have the collision repair manual, CR, clicked, your keyword's only going to search that. If you click collision and then you put it only on RM,
It's only for that.
search that. But if you click summary,
And then
it's going to
click.
search all of them.
Yes.
And then it'll give you a listing of where they actually land.
Yeah. Now that's a great feature when you're just learning.
Yep.
I will say after a while, when you know
Yeah, it
I'm
was
looking
much
for
easier to use those
something,
too.
it's going to be a relearn process. I know it's going to be an RM.
Yep.
I know it's not in the CR portion.
Right.
I want to filter out the noise. And
Well,
I'm
once
gonna
again,
go
the more you do it, the more you become acclimated to it,
You
the
get
more
used
you
to it.
learn, and especially with Toyota, the way they have it set up, all the different models of Toyota across their range will be in the same section, same area. So you'll start getting used to what keywords, what to use, and how to get there.
You
Just
know,
practice.
And the truth is, the learning curve on TIS, if you get in there, start clicking around, take this, what you've learned here today,
Yeah.
and jump in there for an hour or two, you'll be pretty familiar with it.
You'll be good.
Yeah.
So there's nobody that can do a show, even if we did like a 5-part series that could tell you everything you needed to know about Toyota. We still to this day, as we're doing a show, go, oh, hey, have you seen this one?
Yeah, exactly.
We still find stuff that we need. So the thing is you're not going to the system and hoping that it tells you what you need to know. You're going to the system knowing what you need to know and specifically and with intent looking to find it.
Yep.
So eventually you'll get to the point where you know where those things are, or you'll get to where you find them through using your keyword search. But I don't just open up TIS and go, okay, Magic 8 Ball, show me what I need to know about fixing this Camry. I've built that process map. I have a plan. It's all laid out. I know what parts and things.
What
I don't
parts
have
and
to
what
click in
options we-
Mitchell or,
Yep.
or Auditex or CC. I don't have to click in any of the estimating systems right now because I'm using the OE to tell me the other things that I need to know.
Yep.
Right. So now I'm going and getting the information that I know I need. I'm not going to TIS and asking it to tell me what I need to know. That is a fundamental switch, not only in your estimators, but in your body techs and your painters and your ADAS techs or whoever you have, the OE is not a magic 8-ball. It doesn't know what you want to know. It's your job to know what you need to go find in it and go get it and bring it out. And when you make that change, life is golden. So for instance, we searched seat belts. And when we searched seat belts, we found them over in the repair manual, not in the collision side of the manual, because it basically went to the seat belt and said, here's how you take it apart, here's how you take it out, here's how you take it apart, here's how you put it in. And as you started to go through these, you started to find the wording that you needed. So with collision as a keyword, I search collision a lot to try to find out what I need. But I ended up in the front seat belt, and you can see that it's got child restraints, front seat, inner outer, rear seat, inner outer, and that's how it lists the seat belts. So when I go into the front seat belt and I get this precaution, I don't have a document like I have for General Motors that says you're going to do this on every car, right? I think Toyota has one of these for Canada, but not for the US or whatever. But right up here it says, when inspecting a vehicle that was in a collision. Okay, isn't that kind of what we do?
That's pretty much every car.
That's pretty much our job. It
Well,
says,
pause there.
It says, be sure to check all of the seat belt systems regardless of whether or not the system was activated in the collision.
That would mean every seatbelt.
Every seat belt. So now, regardless of if it was activated or how many people were in the car or where people were seated, I'm going to check every seat belt in a Toyota. How do I do that? Well, I read down later, oh, there's a road test involved. I better make sure I got that on my estimate. And to do the road test, well, what does that take? So it basically says, I'm going to fasten the front seat belt. Then I'm going to repeat this for every other seat belt, right? I'm going to drive the vehicle, get it up to 10 miles per hour. I'm going to firmly depress the brake pedal, and I'm going to check and make sure that the belt locks and cannot be extended at this time. If the belt does not lock, follow this assembly here.
So if we click the blue, there's a whole nother procedure. And so this is kind of our flow chart.
So, and then it tells me when I go in a little bit deeper that for inspecting the front seatbelt outer assembly for a vehicle involved in a collision, there it is in another document. So it says on vehicle inspection. Perform a system diagnostic check. What is that?
Well, it could be electronic and or driving.
That's a scan, right?
Yeah.
So if I didn't have the Toyota position statement that says you got to scan, I now know that Toyota says if a vehicle is involved in collision, what? I got to check the seatbelt.
Got to scan.
And to check the seatbelts now, I got to do a scan.
Yep.
So now I've just.
I don't need a position statement.
I don't
for
need a
that.
position statement at all.
Yep.
Well, let me ask you a question. If I'm going to drive the car in the parking lot and I have room, I'm driving at 10 miles per hour and jam on the brakes and make sure it locks up. When I go to test the passenger seat, how do I drive the car from the passenger seat?
Oh, I got technician ×2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then how do I do the back
I
seats?
just go to
You gotta take that
Walmart,
technician
ask for
film and back.
volunteers,
Oh,
and we
okay.
drive around the Walmart parking lot. I mean, one of those two ways are going to work.
Grab a whole bunch of old ladies asking to drive them home.
If I get
I'm
some-
sorry for stopping short.
If I get some magnetic signs, it could be advertising. I mean, so it might have.
So basically, I use the customer's car as an Uber.
Yeah. But it does bring up a good point that's
Do a
often
test drive and make
missed.
some money with it.
If you are going to be doing road testing of a customer's car for repair, which pretty much I can't think of a single repair scenario now that doesn't have a road test, please make sure you have the road test waiver signed by the customer. They need to understand that you're going to be out driving their car.
And don't do this on public roads.
Right.
Try
Don't just stop in the middle of traffic, right?
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Well, you want to check the rear collision warning as well. So you want to make sure it's
But I'm not sure if the airbags will deploy. You have to crash it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, they may not be reusable after deployment.
So that's just really quick searching seatbelt or searching collision. I found where I needed to go. You can see what collisions in the document a couple of times. You can find those pre-collision safety checks that we said. You can find what you do when things are disconnected. But I'm going to the system and telling it what I want. I'm not going to the system and aimlessly searching, hoping to find what I want. Now, if you do a lot of Toyotas, sure, you probably should take an hour or two on a weekend or 2 or 3 hours on a weekend and play on the site and make yourself familiar with things and make notes of what you need and where it's at. But that's how we use the system. So I've got this pre-repair plan. I'm process mapping everything in my mind. I know what I need to do now, and now I'm going to go to TIS and find the information.
Remember, this is a 17 Camry. Pretty standard car, going to wind up in a lot of shops. This is the information you would use whenever you're in a conversation about money, too. We need to do this. Oh, we've got to click there. Okay, it's a scan. And this is just what we have to do.
Right. Now, when you go to start building the lines on the estimate, you're going to be building I'm going to be billing for a seatbelt check. I'm going to be billing for a road test times 2 technicians. And if I have to attach this document now for the repair order, I know it's there. The technician knows that when it comes back from paint, he's got a road test he's got to do. He's got some other things. It's not just a matter of assembling the car and sending it out the door. Maybe your ADAS, ADAS technician is the one that does your road test. I don't know. Figure that out, right? Or it's your detail porter. Usually don't let the detail guy drive the cars.
Not the best ones I found.
No.
Well, you brought up a good point there. How many lines on the estimate have we written so far?
None.
None yet.
I haven't written any.
Right, none.
No, not yet.
None yet. We're still.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. We're still doing our pre-estimate or pre-damage report assessment of the vehicle and research.
Right.
We're still there.
We actually could have taken, I'm standing here and the car's over there. I don't even have to look at the car. I could see it from this far away. I could have done this much research at this point.
Yep.
Just seeing it 10 feet away.
There's
Well,
probably
someone's taking it apart.
there's a large majority of research that I can be doing, like you said, while the teardown technician is taking this car apart and getting ready for me to find the broken components that need to be replaced. The broken component, double clicking on my estimate, is the easiest thing I do all day. The rest of it is preparing all the lines that go around it.
Yep.
So if I teach blueprinting to you, or green printing as we now have trademarked it to be, included operations and the labor times with those parts make me no money whatsoever.
Right.
It's the non-included chargeable operations, and so that's where all of this stuff comes in.
Yep.
So now that I've kind of done that as my estimator, I've built my plan. Now my teardown technician has finished the teardown, and I know the parts I've got to buy, right? Now I can start building line items on an estimate. And it's a very sequential process. So when we write an estimate, we teach you to put it in an order. I don't care how it's going to print out. I know that in my Autotex estimating system, that when I'm done, I'm going to have about 75 lines that are going to print on the bottom of the estimate.
Right.
And are not going to be attached to where I had intended them. But as I'm entering on the estimating system, I'm entering them in a sequential order. I also don't have a checklist.
Right.
So I don't wait till I'm at the end of the estimate, pull out my checklist and go, oh yeah, double click this, 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 double click this. That I'm going to miss stuff all the time. So now I've built this sequential repair. I've collected the documents I need. In theory, I should be done. Now I'm sending it off to the body department, right? So as a body technician, when I look at a car, I look at it in the terms of the parts that I'm going to be replacing, right? Hard to get a body tech to walk up to a car and see it any other way. So we walk up to this, we see grille, headlight, bumper, fender, hood, apron, core support, side baffle. I mean, we start seeing this. We start seeing all the parts that I've got to replace. And all of those parts will have a procedure. So now my body tech has to do some work in TIS. So it's great if you've had that stuff attached and maybe, but what if the estimator missed something?
Well, you still need to find it.
Or didn't think about what you're thinking about because as the tech, you're thinking in a different level or way. We hope that you have the summary meeting where the estimator, the technician and the painter all get together before this car leaves blueprint, but maybe you didn't.
And we're going to talk later that you may need some equipment, which we would want to find out before we ever get the car in the shop. Because if we don't have the equipment, we may not fix the car.
Right. So now I'm going to go in as the technician and start looking at my procedures to repair this car. So let's start with something as simple as the headlight. So the questions that I need to ask myself as a technician, where is it? Not where is the headlight on the car, but where is the procedure for this inside the manual? For Toyota, it's not in the body repair section.
Nope.
So I've got to go over into the repair manual section to find the headlight. Remember, RM is when I want to take something off the car, I want to disassemble it, repair, and or I want to put it back on. That's in that section over there. What's required for that headlight?
We should go on the internet and find out.
We should. Well, I'm just going to go over to Facebook and ask a quick question.
Exactly.
Hey, how you get this door handle out? Oh my God, Lord Jesus. Okay. You can get the door handle out. What else are we worried about? Okay. The headlight. And then can we do this in-house? And so every time I start talking about headlights, technicians look at me like,
it's just a headlight.
You're not a real technician, are you? You're one of those people with book smarts that don't know how to do it. It's just a headlight. What do we need to know about a headlight?
There's 3 10-millimeter bolts.
Okay, let's talk about what we need to know about a headlight,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so if we go into TIS and we're back into TIS and we're searching out a headlight, right? Nothing in the collision repair section. So if I type headlamp, headlight, lamp, whatever in collision repair, I get zilch, zero,
Well, because
nada.
there was no data, I went on Facebook and asked the question there.
Right. Now I go over to the repair manual and, oh, look, exterior lighting systems.
There we go.
There
Only
it
one
is.
choice.
It's right there for me and everything that I need to know about lighting. So again, I get worried about a lot of like when you put procedures inside estimating systems, is it going to be intuitive and know sometimes they call it repair manual here.
Yep.
Do I need to jump to the service manual instead of the collision repair manual? So when I get into it, lighting, headlight assembly, installation. So they do have a procedure for how I'm going to remove this, right? And then how I'm going to install it. And so when I go to install the headlight, it tells me that, well, I got to put the front bumper on as well, right? But then it tells me adjust headlight aiming. Huh. That's
no big deal. Just got a door with a piece of tape, right?
It's not just two mounting tabs. So now I go, well, what does that mean? So I get in my next document there under headlight assembly and adjustment. So what is adjustment? What all is involved in that when I'm adjusting a headlight? All right, so we're going to jump into TIS real quick, and we're going to get a little bit into this headlight document. So here I am. We've now decided what it's going to take to install it. And then I have the bumper, obviously, but then I have this adjust headlight aiming, and I click that blue tab, and it takes me in here, and wow.
Well, here we go.
Yeah. So just a couple of things off the bat. Well, we're going to make sure there's no deformation, but because we've done that because I fixed the car already. I need to fill the fuel tank. I need a full tank of gas.
What do you put in the full tank?
Apparently water.
Well, it just says fill the fuel tank.
Exactly.
Doesn't tell you with gasoline or
No, you open it up,
oil.
you have to read it. It says unleaded fuel only.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Now, is that high test or regular test? I mean, what do we,
So I want to go back to my estimator. If my estimator knew this and the car comes in and it's burning fumes, which I get so many cars in the body shop on burning fumes, I may have to add a $50 fuel charge to the estimate.
Right.
Or when we're in the conversation with the customer, if they were dropping it off, we would say, when we do this, make sure you bring the car in with a full tank of gas. I mean, but that would be great to tell the customer up front, wouldn't it?
And I think what a lot of people don't get is headlights just aren't pointing at the world anymore. They're doing so many things, and there's so many different computer modules in there, and they're helping the safety systems on the car work, that there's a lot of science and technology in headlights these days.
And then they got to make sure the oil's filled to the specified level.
Right, so make sure basically all of your fluids are where they're supposed to be.
This is kind of like your final checklist in a way, if you think about it. So if you did your final checklist prior to, once you get used to this, you realize, you know what? All these fluids have to be, you know what? Let me check everything first. And I'll do the headlight aiming, towards the end or whatever the case is. And, look, and this one, they want someone in the vehicle. An average person of about 150 pounds.
Yeah, so here's the one that's the one I like the most. So I got to make sure that my tire pressure is good.
Yeah.
I got to make sure that I got no junk in the trunk, so to speak. How many cars come in and the whole trunk of the car is just like their entire house.
What are you going to do? You got to take everything.
Right. So all of that's got to come out.
And now you can't hire fat people.
Right. So now I have to weigh all of my employees at the shop, so I know who rates the average to be the one that sits in the seat. And so maybe that's Joe in the front office.
By a show of hands out in the audience there, how many people actually weigh 150? How many people have somebody in the shop that's 150 that's of age that's working in the shop?
Right. So now that person has to be in the driver's seat. Okay, now we're ready to aim the headlights. So, I've got to prepare for the aiming. There's a minimum distance. There's height angles that have to be here. As we scroll down, there's more on the angles that I'm looking for. Lumens, the V-lines. This is a pretty intensive headlight aiming, adjusting, and checklist.
Well, this must be an exotic car.
Oh,
it's a Toyota Camry.
It's a Camry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Told you we should have went with the Bentley. Just saying. Maybe Larry was right this time.
It's kind of like the one time we thought, we'll just do a cruise. And then we were like, oh.
I also voted for a Bentley on that one.
Right, and that one came back on it. But there's a lot in there to adjusting that headlight. So if I'm going to do that.
At 0.4.
Is 0.4 enough?
Well.
No. No.
Well, and then this is a shout out to
the tools to do it.
Well, this is the database conversation with the database providers. You click aim lamps and it says 0.4, but then you go to the P pages and it doesn't even give a description what that 0.4 includes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Does it include the air pressure and checking the oil and the gas tank and the other person in the car, or is that stuff not included?
Right.
Well, I'm gonna wait. I'm hearing. Wait, I'm doing the Vulcan mind melt with Danny.
Yeah, no.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And keep in mind, estimating systems are just a guide, right?
Of course.
So they're just a tool, and then it's still up to you as the estimator in the shop.
My feeling is lately on a lot of the estimates, I don't even put down aim headlamps or aim fog lamps anymore. I have dealer service. That's a set code in my system. And I'll usually, funny enough, I'll put that in the wheel alignment section or the wheel section or the suspension section. And it'll say dealer service with a markup, and then it'll have a line note. Dealer service includes the following: all the ATA systems, the headlights, please see attached invoice. And the dealer's going to give me an invoice that's going to tell me. And we've actually had a couple of complaints, and I don't know why, but it says customer complains vehicle needs wheel alignment. Oh, how does the customer know that? I'm the customer. I sent the car. I'm the shop. So I'm the customer who sent the car, not the guy who owns the car, customer. So I don't like the terminology. I really wish some dealers would change repair facility requested, not customer. Yes, technically we are the customer. You know what? To save a lot of headaches, the customer didn't drive his own car over. I didn't call up and say, hey, Kristen, your car's almost done. It's got to go to the dealer for service.
Take it over there.
Come pick it up, drive it over there.
Well, that's happened for a shop not too far from here with one insurance company that told them it's the customer's job to maintain control of their lane and their lane departure system could work later. In writing.
In writing, yes.
It's one of those things you're like, wow, okay. So, but there's a lot to do for a headlight. Would I do that for 0.4? No, especially since now I got a lot to do. I'm also going to have 2 technicians to do it. So this is something that I got to know.
Yeah, I think you got to stop hitting that click button, aim headlamps, aim fog lamps. You're either doing dealer service or you might have an outside guy, third party that comes in and do it, or you might have some sort of computer system and you bought the aiming equipment and you're going to do it in-house through some sort of module that goes through the internet so they can do like a PC Anywhere type of thing to help you learn it.
And so here's you're going down here besides, I got to have a piece of paper. It's got to be this size. I got to draw a line down the middle of it. This isn't using my garage door anymore. There's some processes and some things that have to go on. So some things to keep in mind. Now, as a technician, I'm going to keep drilling through every part I'm putting on this car with this exact same mentality. Where is it? What does it take? What is required? Can we do it? Those are the things I'm going to ask myself over and over and over. So now let's get into sheet metal, right? Yep. So we're going to go for this, the radiator side support. You can that thing's smashed in this.
That doesn't look like it's going to fit properly.
I'm going to have part? Well, I'm going to make it fit.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm a technician.
I'm a technician?
Yeah.
How long have you been doing this for?
35 years.
Okay.
Now, what
Not 30 like some of these people.
Yeah.
Now,
I
got
got
to go
35.
online to Collision
You're a
Repair
senior.
Technicians United and ask what's the procedure for this?
Well, I'm kind of wondering about my triangles there at the bottom, so I may have to ask somebody on Collision Protection to explain that to me. But so that's the diagram for our radiator side support. You can see where that panel is up there, where it connects to the front of the upper radiator support. It's toast, right? No, it's a welded-in panel, and we knew that going in, so we had done a lot. But now I'm thinking, what are my weld panel requirements? So from Toyota, what do they say I have to do? I need to go find the answers to that question. I'm building my own process map, just like my estimator did. What are the weld symbols? What do they mean? How do they apply to me? Does it affect?
Am I MIGging? Am I squeeze resistance spot
MIG brazing,
welding?
yep.
Am I MIG brazing? Am I doing a lap fillet weld? Am I doing a butt joint? Am I doing plug welds? Am I doing just resistance welds?
But even more than that, I'm still looking at this because now I'd have removal procedures as well. And I have symbology around removal procedures. How do I have to take this panel out?
Maybe that's different than how you're going to put it back in.
Well, sometimes you have to remove a panel to get access to get to an inner panel to remove it, and the part has to go back in that same type of fashion the opposite way. Another thing we're going to look at is too, we're getting surprised now by a lot of manufacturers adding adhesives in certain areas, or reinstalling parts that are not typically the way we would expect it from the factory. We might even have some rivets. Not in this case, but in some, like the Chevy Cruze, we had that issue with rivets all of a sudden.
But until we look it up, we don't know.
Right,
Yep.
you got to look it up
What are
and
my
see.
panel requirements? What do my weld symbols mean? Removal and reinstall. How does that affect me? What are my equipment requirements?
Panel preparation, the flange preparation. Do I leave the factory E-coat? Do I sand it down to bare metal and add, some sort of weld-through primer? Am I adding an adhesive?
Yep.
What am I doing to this?
What are my material requirements? Now, Toyota has some cribs for some of this, but then it's also all in the repair manual as well. So my technicians may need to refer to cribs just as well as my estimators need to refer to them. But now I know, all right, I'm going to go pull the procedure. Now just having the procedure, so this is the one thing I explain over and over to the OEs. Procedures are great, and I don't care how great you make the diagrams or how cute and funny and interactive they are. There still has to be that way where someone takes that procedure, answers these questions, digests it, and now they have a repair plan for the car. So Toyota, for instance, on spot welds says that they want 1.3 times more than what you take out.
But I got to do math now?
Right, you got to do math.
So if you took out 10 welds, what would you put back in? 13 or 14?
Oh, dude,
It's actually, you'd have to take the 3 and then round it up to the higher number.
and
That's
have
Toyota.
Yeah. So they may not have
Hang
a
on,
weld
1,
count
2,
here.
Yeah.
3, 4, 5. 8,
33.33.
10, 11. Okay.
Carry the one.
So not every OE will you know, some of the OEs are basically say you're going to cut out 22, you're going to replace back 27. Some OEs may just have a math thing, and you got to go, oh, I got to figure this out, right? So you got a lot to do. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to do some research. I'm back into TAS as the technician. Having just the procedure, printing off just that radiator side support panel isn't enough. I now got to have 3 or 4 more sets of documents to make all of this come together.
Ooh, but we have a check.
We have a check for what?
You
How many lines have we written on? No, how many lines have we written on the estimate so far?
I'm still.
Not yet.
We're still at
Yeah.
Not yet.
zero.
Not yet.
All right.
So-
We'll get
I
there.
was so hoping for it. Okay.
So now as I'm going to go through and I'm going to
Take a
go
nap,
into
I'll let you
my
know.
I'm going to go into my welding notifications. So I'm going to get a few things here. So one, here's my body repair procedure. I'm going to go ahead and pull that. I'm going to have that referenced over here because it's telling me what my removal locations are. It's telling me what my replacement locations are.
OMI is outer, middle, and inner. That's, you know, and that's a standard across Toyota. Just so you know, so if you're working on Toyotas, you'll see them all the time the same way. Once you start learning them, you know, I've done enough Toyotas, I don't need to look at the legend really, you know, so much anymore. I refer to it quickly, but I don't have to study it, and I don't have to keep looking back all the time, because now I know outer, middle, you know, inner.
The terminology, yeah.
Yeah, it becomes, you know, second nature, because they keep it simple. They do try and help you, you know, remember these things, so they try and keep this. And look, I mean, they have it on here from 2012 to 2017.
Jumping ahead of yourself, Larry. Hold on. Okay, so I've pulled the assembly, right. I've got the assembly procedures. I'm going to go down them. I've got all of my, here's my removal process, right? Read. Here's my installation process. Here are my symbols for that. I'm going to be spot welding and plug welding on this. 2 welders tells me what?
2 weld tests,
2
minimum.
weld tests, 2 setups. I got to start
Well, it
thinking
depends
about all
on
that.
what the panel thicknesses are and how many panels.
Right.
Right?
And the type of welds.
Yep.
Here's my installation. Here's what I need to know. Here's the rest of my procedures.
Just go back up for a second there. Like on this one over here where they're showing you they have a circle with an O in it, and then 2 squares with circles in it. Next to them there's numbers, an 8, a 2, and a 4. That's how many welds you're going to have in that area with those. And I'll be honest, the pictures are relatively close to how you're going to be doing the repair. So they are pretty good with their drawings to show you what kind of welds you're going to have and where they are and how many you're going to have.
Right. So now I've got my replacement procedure. I have that. I've reviewed it. It's in this hand. So I'm not done. I'm not even close to being done. So now I'm going to go back into.
We don't know what those symbols mean.
We don't know what I mean, we don't want to ever take anything for granted and think that we've got it down or that we understand everything. So I'm going to go back into another document within TAS. And these are my weld requirements, right? So it's telling me what the different symbols mean. It's telling me what Larry was talking about, inner, middle, outer, what plug welding, what MIG welding looks like, what spot welding looks like.
Every triangle is removal. And it could be an outer portion of the material, like they're showing you with the drill bit, a middle where you're removing 2 layers, or an inner, which means you're drilling through all 3 layers. Just drill straight through. Don't even worry about doing damage to it. Which in this case, if you had a triangle with an I, you're probably going to use a drill bit. If you have an O and an M in a triangle, you may want to use a drill bit, but you might want to use your belt sander to cut through it.
Yep.
Belt sander would not be recommended for going through all 3 pieces. Okay?
But one you might.
1 or 2 you might, yeah. Especially with 1, you definitely want to. Now you also take a look at your weld symbols. And this is every Toyota. A round circle is going to be a spot weld, and a square is going to be a plug weld. With an O, it's an outer. With the circle, it's a spot weld on the outer side, or you're going through the middle or through the inner. So, you know, they keep the same pattern through each vehicle. Makes life a lot simpler once you learn this chart.
Right. I'm taking that chart, I'm applying it back to my procedure that I've just pulled, and I'm working on finalizing my plan. Now, I've got to go do a little bit more. So when I go into work precautions and notices, Toyota's got a lot of great documents in there. We're back to welding. It breaks down for me what I'm going to do when I have 2 panels, what I'm going to do when I have 3 panels, what I'm going to do when I have 4 panels. So I got to go all the way through this. It tells me what gas I'm using, what the mixture of that gas is supposed to be. But if we look at spot weld, so if you know, what welder should I have if I'm going to work on Toyotas? Well, Toyota doesn't necessarily say it has to be a specific brand. So it's not like the
but it's a
Audi
spec.
or whatever. Here's your specs. So my welder must be able to have this pressure, must have this current, and I need to be able to adjust the cycle time to 0.23 seconds. Pretty simple. We either have it or we don't. If we don't have it, we don't fix the car.
But you got to remember too, this is
Or we buy a
important.
welder.
Your welding wire is AWSER 70S-3, which is your electro rod 70,000 tensile strength, solid core wire, but a -3 versus what most shops have is a -6.
Or 7.
Or 7 in some rare cases. So you're going to have
So
an
you may
issue
not have the
here.
right wire in your
You may
shop,
not have the
is
right
the
wire.
point.
You're going to have to take a look and make sure you have the right wire. What's also nice is, and I've talked about this before, and here's a picture of it, that number 2 is pointing at the cross section of what kind of panels there. So this gives you a good view in other areas when they show you cross sections. If I have outer panel damage and it's in enough, I got to say, well, the reinforcement's damaged too, because look at how close it's right up against it.
Right.
So if the outer's damaged, the inner has to be damaged. We're replacing both. So this is another thing that estimators, or damage assessors, I'd rather call them, need to look at when they're looking at cross-section, under the construction of the vehicle, cross-sections, and see what's in those areas and say, oh, wait a second, not just the foam, I got a reinforcement. Now we got 2 inner and outer panels. It might be a total now because of the year and how much I have to take off of this vehicle.
Right, so I got a lot going on.
Yeah, you
so
got a lot to look at.
I've taken the repair procedure, which is one document. It's about 5 pages. I've now added another 6 pages to it by going to 2 separate documents, and I'm starting to make a complete picture of what it's going to take to put this single little $75 panel of mild steel on the car.
Yep.
So I know now I'm going to have two setups, 2 test welds, right?
Yep.
I've got consumables. I'm going to need to buy wire.
Yep.
I need to order it if I don't have it at the shop, but also I need to charge for a little wire on the estimate. There's all of these things that I'm doing and checking while I'm doing this, that as an estimator, I'm also working with my technician. As a technician, if you're not invited to the blueprint party, you still have to do this before you start tearing the car apart.
You should be at the party, though.
Right, you should be at the party, but if you didn't get an invitation to the dance, before you start ripping the car apart, these are all the things that you need to be doing and making sure that you got what it's going to take to get the car done. So if I go back to the beginning, when we knew we needed to measure that A-pillar, had the blueprint tech not done it as the technician on the car, I'd be double checking that before.
Now, an important notice here that they show you: be sure to use metal active gas. Now, keep in mind that argon's a noble gas. It's inert. That's used for aluminum and silicone bronze or MIG brazing. Years ago, on the older, thicker metal, we were able to use pure CO2. What happens is once you mix an active gas, such as CO2, with an inert gas, MIG weld, what happens now is you have a mixed material gas, and they're classifying that as mag welding. Because it does have active abilities to it. And it's not pure active. Now, most shops will get a 75-25. They actually want an 80-20. So you might actually have not only a completely different wire you got to change, you need a different tech. You might actually need to buy a separate MIG welder.
This is my Toyota tank.
No, you might need to buy a separate welding machine.
Sure.
And once again, a 110, 115 machine is not that crazy expensive.
Right.
You could buy it, and you just use it for Toyota. You probably need a separate one for Honda, because Honda has a completely different wire. So, you have this issue where you might have 2 or 3, $800 to $900 welders sitting in the shop, and actually put an emblem on there. It says Toyota. Toyota Lexus and Honda Scion, Acura, because you need to have the differences with it.
And it doesn't matter how well I prep those panels. It doesn't matter what weld-through primer I use. It doesn't matter how much cavity wax I used. If I don't have the right wire and the right gas.
Yeah, speaking of
put it on there
wire,
with bubble gum.
you see it talks about -3. Most shops have 6 or 7 as that last one there. But a lot of welding companies want to sell you this stuff called easy grind.
Yeah, no.
Because it's easy to grind.
Yeah, no, you don't want that.
It does not belong in the collision repair shop. You might want to go look at your welder to see what's actually in your welder.
Yeah.
Because every car you've welded with easy grind probably needs to be re-welded or totaled.
Take it apart. So then the one thing about Toyota is that I've read the procedure to now put the panel on. There's a completely separate section within TIS that I have to go to figure out how I finish that panel off. And in this case, with the seam sealers that are going to go on these panels.
Oh, I thought that was hemming. We had to go ahead and learn how to sew.
Yeah, well, no,
we were able to sew.
That's how we cut it off. Because remember, we learned last week that that makes.
Didn't you see? He just did this. Didn't we see on the internet?
Isn't that what it's for? Yeah.
Well, didn't we see on the internet that somebody was actually doing welds like that?
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
It was
okay.
horrendous.
Yeah. So, but you're going to finish off as a technician as I go through. This is one $75 panel that I've just spent maybe 30 minutes of research around, and I'm now at 4 supporting documents for the 1 replacement procedure document. So I'm now here into my seam sealer and how I'm going to finish it off and how that seam sealer is going to get applied. And that's One step for one panel. Now let's go back and think about that car. The headlamp, the grille, the bumper, we're gonna have an upper fender apron, we're gonna have that side radiator support baffle. I think of all the parts, I gotta repeat this process another 6, 7,
Well, plus
8
we have all
times.
the mechanical parts that are attached to the inner fender. We're gonna have to deal with all those too.
Yep. And then we got sensors, and Toyota does a great job of telling me where the sensors are mounted on the
Sensors
front
are
of
under
that
the
car.
bumper.
That have to come back. Again, the secret is process mapping. Because if you just look at it from standing on the outside at 27,000 feet or whatever, this seems very, very overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're thinking, Kristen, wait, for that little bitty teeny tiny part, you've looked at 5 different documents to present the entire picture that it takes to fix this car right. Uh-huh.
Well, if you
Okay.
don't, then you could just buy cars back, because that's what's been happening.
Right. But as you
can't
think
skip
about it,
stuff.
as that seems overwhelming and you're sitting in front of your computer and you're looking at TIS and you're going, where do I go? If you've done your process map, you're going to tell TIS where it needs to go.
Right.
You're not going to be sitting there staring into the abyss hoping that it feeds you up the information that you need. You're not going to be blindly asking an estimating provider to feed you automatically what you need.
Yeah.
You're going to learn how to go find the supporting documentation because you're driving the train at that point.
Yep.
And that's what the secret is. Over and over, I can't tell you, it's the secret to estimating, it's the secret to repair, it's the system to being a great painter. It's building this repeatable process map.
It's the secret to running a business.
Right.
You know, you always have to have some sort of process planned out and figure it out and stick to it.
Right? So let's talk about refinish, because I always stump people when I talk about...
We're going to write the estimate?
Not yet.
Not yet.
We're not there yet.
But we're painting. The car's almost done. We're ready to buff. What are we doing?
We're 2 hours into an overview show and we still haven't written the estimate yet. So,
We're painting.
right. So I hear this all the time when I talk to people about, well, what is your paint department doing for OE procedures? And the painter kind of looks at me and goes, that's not my problem. Well, it is your problem in a lot of ways these days. So there's roughly 400 plus documents floating around out there that are OE procedures that relate to refinish. So what I like to do in the blueprinting process while the car is in there, obviously when we decode the VIN, we get the color code anyway, but we'll get the color code, we'll bring the painter up, and we will start talking about, so this is my 2017 color codes for the Camry. Nothing really in the Camry that causes me a whole lot of strife, worry. Now, there are
I'm
some...
kind of worried because I saw champagne and creme brulee, so now I'm hungry and thirsty.
If this was Lexus, right, I have a couple of color codes that make me go, you got to be kidding me, right? And so maybe I have some quad coats. But even with some of these ruby flares, that's technically listed as a pearl, but it's not a 3-stage operation or a 4-stage quad coat, I still may have a tinted ground coat. I'm going to be doing an L shade.
Well, and also how many different variances are there? How many different spray out cards might you have to make for
Right.
this particular cutter to adjust it properly?
Right. You may have a color that's going to require some additional preparatory procedures. So I'm going to go beyond the 400 grit to prep the blend
1,000
panel.
or
I'm going to
something?
go to 1,000 or 1,500 or 3,000. This pre-dawn gray mica isn't as bad as, say, 47G from Mazda or whatever. But we've got some things that we need to think about in the refinishing process.
You don't think the attitude black might give you a little trouble? It's got an attitude.
It's your color. we named that one after
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So...
It does have an attitude.
But the things that I want to be talking about with my painter in this process, and we want to be looking through the OE repair manual, is there a color procedure process that I need to be aware of? When I think about processes, is there a millage limitation that I need to be aware of and I need to
What's my
discuss with my
final
painter?
sanding before I put the paint on there? Sometimes they want
Right.
a requirement of a much finer grit to avoid sand scratches or modeling of the paint and stuff.
Yep. Sometimes you'll get a color that's a factory pack, like it's not necessarily something I'm going to mix on the bench, and that may change my ordering. Some things to think about. And then there's different materials around that refinishing process. And Toyota is one of those companies that has anti-chip primer.
And this is not new.
No,
This
it's
has been around forever.
I can't remember when it started, but I can't remember not seeing it. You know what I mean?
Right,
It's like one of
yeah.
those things. Like I know it's been in there for years about the film thickness is going to be thicker at the beginning portion of the hoods because it's chip guarded. Same thing with the rockers and the bottom of the doors, and you don't visually see it. But if you take a film thickness gauge, you will see.
So in the
difference.
estimating process, we would need a film thickness gauge.
Well,
Right.
you should always do film
Of
thickness.
course.
Yeah.
So we would check the hood to make sure that it has it, and then we got to put it back on. But that's a good thing with any car that you do an estimate on. But it tells you right there that you have to do that, and that's not included
Right, not
in your
included.
normal refinish.
Right, so there's some prep for that, there's some application for that, then there's going to be It's going to kind of have to sit there before I go in to apply the rest of the color to my bumper, my fender, my hood, and the other parts.
I'd love to know how many Toyota hoods were sold between 2014 and 2016, and how many of those hoods actually got or received some sort of treatment of chip guarding on the front portion of that hood for the first, 16, 18 inches, whatever the hell it is.
It's a low-hanging fruit operation when you take a mill gauge and you check it here and you check it there on a PRI.
Yeah.
Post-repair, it's like they didn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a simple process, but it's got to be done, and it changes a little bit of the flow of the painter for that particular vehicle because it's an additional step, and I got to wait for that to flash and get done before I can go back to color or whatever. So the painter needs to be aware. You need to have whatever your system is in your shop for notifying the painter that that's got to be done. That can be something that when a part comes in, you may want to go ahead and, you're getting it over to paint and everything and having them work on that while the body tech's still finishing it up. Whatever your process or procedure is for that, but you just need to identify it and know it's there.
Yeah.
We're getting more and more crazy colors on some cars that are a little bit harder to do. Blending processes are a little bit more involved, or I'm doing a lot more tinted undercoats, and maybe there's some processes and material expenses to recapture there. So if you think the painter doesn't have to pay attention to OEM information.
They do.
They do.
Yep.
So especially if you have a millage limitation.
Yep.
So let's think about if I was going to blend a bumper, and that bumper had a millage limitation. I need to really make sure I've got my $2,500 mill gauge for plastic.
Right.
So that I can make sure if I blend that bumper, I'm not messing up with any system. All right. So calibrations. This is kind of the last stop of the shop, right?
Yep.
It rolls out of the paint department, and now it's in calibration.
Cleaned up, looking good.
Wait, the car's ready for delivery. We didn't even write an estimate yet.
Yeah.
And one of the things, we're going to
That's
get
how
there.
I'm thinking about it.
We're
Process
going to get
mapping,
there.
Larry.
So in the RTS, one of the things to look at here is what are the vehicle system options? Remember, we went into there, we put the VIN in, told us what we have. This is a really nice, easy cheat sheet to see what you have. Let's forget about the DTT set and system mills, etc. This tells you where are the sensors. So on adaptive cruise control, it's behind the front bumper. Collision warning, behind the front bumper. Collision braking, behind the front bumper. Blind spot monitoring, behind the rear bumper. Lane departure warning, in the rear view mirror. So are we seeing a pattern that behind the bumper we've got a lot of stuff?
Oh yeah, the bumper's messed up on this
That's
car.
right. We hit the
Oh, yeah.
bumper.
And the
And
grill.
in fact, most collisions include
Yeah,
a bumper.
Yeah. So here, this is great. iCar has done a phenomenal job of putting this together in RTS because, again, like we talked about, I go in and I decode my VIN. It's going to tell me options, but if something's considered standard equipment, it may not be there. It's in the convenience package or whatever. So I still need to come in here and know where these things are, and then I need to go to the car and kind of verify, gimme there or not or whatever. Here's the questions I'm asking. I know I'm either taking this off or it's going to lose power during this process because the battery's coming out of the car.
Yep.
For this whole, I got to put a couple of welded panels in. So what does calibration, reinitialization, or relearn look like for all of these systems that we've identified?
We got to consider if we're doing an R&I, that is considered to be the same operation as R&R.
R&R.
Correct.
Which means we got to follow because when the OEMs, when they write it, they go, after you've replaced this part, you got to recalibrate. Well, if we've disconnected it, taken it off the car and put it back on, we got to recalibrate.
The car sees it as a replace.
Absolutely.
They don't know, oh, that's the same one that's always
Yep.
been here before.
Yep.
So are my resets, calibrations, relearns, whatever, are they active or are they passive? Is it something that I've actually got to tell the car to do, or is it something that it relearns after so many key cycles, or if it's driven so
You'd
far?
have to read the operational statement, description and operation, if it clears itself. For example, outside of reweighing the passenger seat, anytime you shut a car off and turn it back on again, the airbag system does a self-check, self-alignment, whatever you want to call it, and the light should go off. If the light stays on, you obviously have an issue someplace. ABS systems for years have been, if you disconnected it while the battery was on and started the car, then reconnect it, use an ABS light. Generally, it was drive the car above 20 miles per hour, shut it off, turn it back on, the light should be off. It's got like an automatic reset. That's just an old standard, because you had some sort of a light to let you know. Now we don't know what's going on. That's why, you got to scan, see what codes might be there, then find out what has to be reset after you've already done this information on, well, I know I got to reset the camera because the camera came off. I know I got to reset the lane departure because this came off. What other things do I have to do and know about for what automatically sets itself, what doesn't.
Right. I've got to figure that out because that's part of my recalibration process. I don't give the car back to the customer and go, good luck in 3 days, it should be good. It'll relearn
If there's
everything.
a problem, come back.
Right. I don't send the car back to the customer to have them let the car relearn. So if there is what I would call more of a passive relearning process, I got to take the car through that process. If it's 7 key cycles, 9 key cycles, 12 keys, whatever
driving
it is.
whatever it is, resetting
I
it.
got to do it, right? Targets. Are targets required? Like I said, Toyota does a phenomenal job of, and we're going to get to how you print and build some things here in a minute. Do I have them? If I don't have them, am I willing to build them?
Well, when we started this 4 hours ago, I remember targets. I remember we had to make a paper target out of something.
And we still haven't wrote a line on the estimate.
That was to
right?
aim the headlights.
Okay, but we needed a target. I remember that.
we did.
Do I have the space? So at one of these we're about to see is I need 26 feet of clear level space behind the car. You know, and I'm looking around my shop going, do I have 26 feet of clear level space that I would even be able to do this physically here, right? What would it take? Where do I have to do? Do I have to let every car deliver on Friday before I can do this procedure or whatever? I got to know these things. And then test drive. So many things have a test drive these days.
I think we saw 3 of them.
We're missing the boat on that one. Especially we're missing releases. You don't just go driving a customer's car around
you got to
town.
get the release.
So make sure you got it there. So let's go through. You pulled this one for me. This is my lane departure warning camera. I need, what is we got here? I got to have a lot of distance between a wall and a width on either side for this thing to line up, right?
Yep.
All right, so we're going to jump into TIS real quick, and we're going to look at that lane departure thing. This is where you want me, Mark? You want me here at perform the camera adjustment?
So the camera adjustment, yep.
Boom.
And there's a lot here.
There is a lot there. Wow. Move the vehicle to a level surface. Make sure we have all that fuel and everything is full again. But this time, nobody in the vehicle, so our skinny guy is off the hook.
Yeah, we don't need a skinny guy.
I like number 10.
Guy can do this
I like
job.
number 10. It says clean the windshield.
All right. I have some.
And then perform the front wheel alignment adjustment. So we have to do the alignment
First.
before we do this.
Oh, so now I got to make sure that it gets to the alignment shop and then back to me.
Yep.
All right.
And there's your target.
Create a target.
They want you to print the target, and then after you print it off, they want you to measure the target that printed off to make sure it follows within these specs.
Okay.
And there's the target.
So that guy I saw on YouTube that somebody posted in Collision Repair Technicians United maybe a month ago that had a folding ladder and he was self-printing a target and he's like, I can do this at home. No.
Well, he probably printed this and then put it on a ladder is what he did.
So I gotta print my target, make sure it's the right size.
Yep.
And then I gotta build something to put my target on.
Put the stand and meet the spec of that.
Right, okay.
Which is not the ladder you bought at Home Depot.
Not the ladder. Oh, looky there. Okay.
And then keep coming down.
Okay. There's my plumb bob.
Yep.
Anytime you start a collision repair procedure with get your plumb bob, when we're still struggling to weld properly, I'm thinking, I'm not so sure I'm trusting Bob, my technician, to get his plumb bob.
Now, do you buy that at Home Depot, or does Snap-on have a special?
Is there a special plumb bob for
plumb
the
bob?
Harbor Freight, it's cheaper.
No, you don't go to Harbor Freight for anything.
We're calling the brick mason to come do our alignments now. So now I've got my plumb bob.
Now this becomes where our space requirements in the shop, front and in the side.
Wow.
And the windshield's clean. And we also, one of the things that we have to also look at, which we looked at another procedure, was, is the bracket that holds the camera, is it not bent? Because if it is bent, what do we have to do, Kristen?
We got to replace the windshield.
Yeah. Not
We're
because
not
the windshield's
allowed to fix
broken,
that.
because the camera bracket's bent.
Yeah.
That's attached to the windshield.
Yeah.
So that's, I've disconnected the battery, I've done some things, and I'm now only going to have to relearn all of these systems because I've done that. I've got a target here that I've got to have and to do. I now need to decide, do I have this equipment and am I ready? So I may have the targets. I may do a lot of Toyotas or whatever, and I may have them. Or I may have one of the new kind of generic targeting systems, whether it's Altel or Bosch or whatever. I may have a targeting system where I'm not printing off pieces of paper and getting PVC pipe and trying to build all this on my own.
Does your technician have the training for it?
Does it? Yeah, and can my technician do it?
How far are you from the dealer? If you're really close, you're probably better off sending it to the dealer. If you're really far away, you might have to invest in a separate mechanic, separate bunch of equipment to be able to do this stuff.
Some of these things, I think what a lot of people miss is this isn't a pass-fail. This isn't a yes-no, green light, red light kind of thing. Whatever you tell that camera to see, it sees. So kind of like, NASTA came out with on the Honda, hey, that 1 degree,
Made a difference, yeah.
Made a huge difference. So you may think you're doing it, and you've got the camera looking here when it needs to be looking here, just a couple degrees. And if you have that third party, if you've got one of the pass-through systems, whether it's Aztec or AirPro or whatever, fantastic, amazing, wonderful people on the other end of the line, but they don't know whether my tech's exactly doing what he's supposed to be doing. So,
well, and then we also got to take this as a package, because we're looking at this individual calibration, but we also have an occupant weight sensor. Now, do we have the weights for that?
Yeah.
Do we have all these different things? And so we might be able to do 5 or 6 of these, but not that one.
Right.
Well, if we're going to the dealer,
Let's go to the dealer.
let's just get it done there.
Yeah, and that's that decision. So when we talk about logistics, and I'm putting my logistics manager hat on, I have to decide now as I'm blueprinting the car, not Friday when I'm thinking about delivery
Right.
or whatever. So here we got what we do on the for
This is
lane
the-
departure. This is for the compass.
Yep.
Right. So the compass is on the mirror, and if I have to recalibrate the compass, I'm driving in circles.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, you're driving in circles, and you're pulling forward, backing up in a, we'll just go to it and
Set
test.
pattern.
Just go to it and test.
All right, so let's get into it and test real
It's
quick.
pretty entertaining.
I am looking for my
So on your
inner
test
rear view.
drive, you may have some additional maneuvers. Okay, so now
All right.
we're at the compass, and with the compass, after we reconnected the battery and followed all the instructions, now we got to follow a proper test drive.
Wow.
Now, do you do this like the bird thing?
After
with your
driving
blindfolded?
around in a circle 1, 2, 3 times,
Yep.
the direction will display. So I got to drive in a circle 1 to 3 times.
So you get north,
Well, but then,
northeast,
but if
east,
you look at the
southeast.
bottom, though, we have to pull forward and back up and forward and back up.
Right. So it's like almost Dance the Swans
Yeah, it kind
or
of is.
whatever with the cars going in and
Do
out.
you play music to this?
You could. I would suggest classical.
At 5 miles per hour. That's so fun that way. If you do it like 60 miles an hour, like you kind of drift a little bit.
Fast and Furious?
You're Fast and Furious. Would that work faster?
How many of those could I improve my cycle time by doing more of those in a certain way? So, a small snapshot of what calibration takes and things that I think a lot of people don't think about. The one thing that keeps me up at night, I've kind of I've given up on some of the
Your 2
welding and
kids?
some of the other things. My 2 kids do keep me up at
dogs?
night. The dogs are amazing. They never make mistakes. But there's so much when it comes to the electronics and the calibration and the relearn of that. That's really overwhelming. It takes a lot of time deciding whether you have the in-house capabilities or do not. And then keeping in mind that in-house capabilities isn't just because of the tool you've purchased, that there are a whole lot of other parameters around that.
Training
that
in
you have to
space
be
and all that
thinking.
other stuff. Yep.
Yeah, I mean 26 feet, right? On that blind spot monitor, I need 26 feet in the rear. And I gotta have the little cone-shaped, metal cone thing. So there's a lot there. So it's a short 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
But we didn't run an estimate. You guys lied to me.
We're going to do that next.
We're fixing to go write the
We're gonna do
estimate,
that off camera.
right? So
wow.
of just the overview process on the 2017 Camry on what would be a moderate front-end collision. But as you can see, it's all really about building that process map in your head, deciding what the process for taking that part off and putting that part back on is going to be, what other parts are going to be affected in the repair, and then making the list of the information you need, and then going to TIS to find it. And when you get that methodology down, when you become that sort of process map builder, finding the OEM repair information that you need to fix the car becomes easier and not so overwhelming because you're not asking for it to serve it to you. You're going and telling it what you need to know. So we're going to be doing this format all year long. We'll be taking side hits, rear hits, doing a lot of different things through
On the
OEs.
popular cars.
On the most popular cars. So we have the 12 most popular cars that are on the road in North America
the
that are
Bentley on
selling.
No.
Bentley's not on there. Ferrari's not on there. Lamborghini's not on there. Porsche's not on there.
It's the most popular cars in the United States, not Larry's most favorite cars.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
So we'll have to
Not
work
fair.
through that. And then we'll be kind of adding to it this year with some secondary classes around estimating. So after you've gone through this OE procedure process with us, what do the lines on the estimate actually look like? We're going to let Larry click a few lines, 368 of them to be exact on this car. So we'll go through those line by line. We will see you next month on OE Repair University.